Okay. Sorry that everything's a bit rushed. I had parents' evening tonight, and I'm talking to nobody. I've got nobody watching, so I'm just going to stop talking until I've got somebody. All right. Right. Hello. 1 second. Once we just get organised. 14 people, that'll do. Right, Evna, Vivi is in the background. Help. Thank you, Vivi. This is a bit bouncy. I've had parents' evening, which was really badly timed. Parents' evening got scheduled after we set the date for the Ask Me Anything. So I had to get the primary school teacher done and dusted, drive back here, set up the tripod. Now we realise it doesn't work, it's working. Right, so we're ready to go. In the background, I just want to do a little bit of an introduction to this Ask Me Anything, okay? And that is some changes that are happening at Bookiebashing. You would have thought that I would have had these in front of me ready for this call, wouldn't you? But you'd be wrong. So let me just find them so that they are here in front of me and I can talk about them. What was the day that I got 1 million? That'll be when it was sent. It was Monday, wasn't it? Okay. Right. I'm going to have to ask for it because I can't find the email. Can you please give me the table with all the tiers? Okay. So we're going to change something at Bookiebashing. Since we started in 2014 in my kitchen, we have been one subscription for everything. And that's worked from 2014 to 2024. And it doesn't work so much in 2024 for various reasons. It's not the same anymore as it was. And this is going to be a sort of direct answer to a question, my first Ask Me Anything. And that question was, you really have a difficult time with criticism. A little feedback without the dramatics would be nice. What is it that's gone wrong? This person asks. And so recently we've had quite a lot of criticism, very little of it being fair. But the main reason why I'm quite bad at criticism actually goes back years ago to something traumatic with your mother. I don't want to get into the nitty gritty of it. We certainly did that night, but ever since then, it's been quite difficult for me to handle. Okay. But part of the criticism being leveled to us is that we have grown not in size, but in scope and content. From that, what I mean is that we don't really ever share the number of people that is at Bookiebashing because a little bit of variance over the year, especially with the seasons and the available value. But if you looked at a graph over the last few years, it's not changed. It's pretty much a straight line all the way across. What has changed is the amount of content that we have at Bookiebashing. So over time, people have said, I want to pay for X, Y, Z, but I don't want to use something else. And so now we're making some changes, 2 changes really, to make that happen. One of the reasons for making the changes is the value needs to be protected. So one of the things that's happened recently is people sign up, take the value, and then share it with a Discord platform with another 100 members or onto a Telegram channel or something. So what we now need to do is we now need to split the trackers, the tools, the value into different component parts. and just charge a little bit more for it. Because whilst we have the same number of menus, we need to make the barrier for entry a little bit harder. Also, the cost per member goes up as you add more content, tools and trackers to a service like Bookiebashing. So before this week, we're £125 per month for everything. And that is known as the ultimate package. And for that, you get every tracker and all the tools and the support. Now, that's going to go up to £150 per month. Do you think £150 per month is too much? Then, honestly, promise you, we're not for you. If it even crosses your mind that that's too much, then we're not for you. And I don't. This is like you're getting confused about what it is that you're signing up for if you think that £150 per month is a lot of money. In the recent history, I was talking to somebody today who in the last 12 months has had a Paddy Power account, hitting a lot of combo bets on the Paddy Power account, £30,000 in profit in a year, and his account hasn't been restricted. Okay? In 1 year. In one little edge. In one bookmaker. Okay, so there was another chap, he made £100,000 at BetDAC in 1 month. Right, there was another chap, him and his girlfriend making £20,000 per month. So we need to figure out the pricing level at which we are going to make it fair for those higher rate guys, those guys that are winning at a higher level, while still making it affordable for those that have a bankroll and an understanding about variance, volatility and bankroll management to come in as well. And that's why £150 per month makes sense. If you've got a bankroll of 300 quid and little understanding of variance, then there are other things you could be doing with that money that would make sense. For Bookiebashing, 1,500 quid bare minimum, and then you're 10 months worth of subscription cost is not a lot. So I mean, that's the kind of level that you would need if you were walking through the door, especially in something like an ultimate package. Now, it is for everything. There are going to be different packages now. A shop package, because a lot of guys only hit shops and they're not interested in online soft bookmakers. So we can offer that, right? We can just take away the trackers that were specific to online soft bookmakers, such as the combo bets tracker, the early payout tracker, the basic horse racing tracker. We'll just take those away. You can have it for a bit cheaper, £130 a month. The pro package, some people not interested in tools, exchange betting, shop betting. They just want, a golf tracker, a combo bets tracker, early payout tracker. So that's £99 per month, that and the basic horse racing tracker. You might look at other pro packages elsewhere, which are simply a horse racing tracker. You're getting more for your money with that one. Similarly, at the £99 a month, there's an exchange tier, which is just going to be all of the tools for market making and trading, plus your private tracker or your group private tracker. If you're in a group, that's £99 a month. And then none of the online soft bookmakers, none of the shops, because it's not of interest to you. And then a further 4 packages, depending on if you just want horses, if you just want golf, if you just want early payout, and if you just want the bet tracker, and nothing else. And from the feedback we've had, people tend to want one of those things. So there's a lot of people that will be downgrading to those packages. And I hope they're a little bit happier paying the amount, £79 a month for horses. That's both pro and basic. We got 2 horse racing trackers at Bookiebashing. Or the golf early payout and the bet tracker at £49 per month. So this is a change that's going to be implemented from Monday morning. Like when we get up, 6 o'clock in the morning, I don't know. And if you're on an existing package and you just want to stay on that and you don't want to pay any more, you don't need to do anything. Like, you can stay on your ultimate package and you'll still pay what you are doing this week as long as you continue to do nothing and just resubscribe every month. That's kind of a reward for continuous service. And, if you then find that you need to go on a break for 9 months and then come back, then we need to charge whatever the rate is at that time, which we try and keep fair. We try and keep in line with inflation, or if we feel the need that the value of the service is just increasing so much that that's what it has to go to. So we did get a few emails. I don't want to pay a higher rate. I just want to stay on my current rate. That's absolutely fine. You will. Just don't do anything. Continue to resubscribe and you'll get your ultimate for your current rate of whatever that is. There's a few different rates going on because there's a few different legacy amounts. So yeah, that's the big change next week. So if there's any questions about that, fire them in. So there's just been a few, I mean, I can take questions on anything this evening, from sustainability of gambling to different edges. But really, I think that the main thing that's going on in this call is kind of administrative stuff around bookie bashing as a service. So, I mean, one of the good things about bookie bashing is we've had a lot of challenges and contenders in the last year, 18 months, certainly copycat services, people reselling the data. There was a great Wagatha Christie thing that we did yesterday where, you know, we know of a number of different people that are reselling the golf tips. And so we threw a sting in and we delayed the golf tips until, well, different times for different people, but precisely 7:30 p.m. for one particular member. So when we saw that a particular service had their golf bets delayed from 1 p.m. to precisely 7:30, we knew that was him. That was fun. On top of that, though, we're continually adding new trackers and tools and doing research and development in the background. And I promise you, people sometimes say that and it sounds like nonsense. Research and development is just that. And what it means is that we need to prove that we need to have the idea, and then we need to prove it works. Sometimes you have the idea and it doesn't work. Would you like an example of something that hasn't gone anywhere and we don't think we're going to be able to push live? It was a game center for other sports. So the game center for football just now is it calculates the correct score from 0-0 up to 2020, and with that information we can do anything, and we can do it by half, which means we can do time period bets as well as all Asian handicaps and all kind of funky things that they're coming up with just now. What did I see the other day? Team to win both halves and both teams to score, which is a bit of a mind twister. There's a lot of or permutations that are going in there. Anyway, we've got it nailed for football and we're very happy with that model. Now, we ran for a very long time a similar model, but for NFL. And for NFL, we went from 0-0 to 200-200. Not that a game has ever gone 200-200, but you know, football game has never gone 20-20. You just run the maths until the probability is too low that it would never happen, and then you can stop. And in basketball, we did 0-0 to 200-200, and in rugby, we did 0-0 to 150-150. We did rugby league as well. And then we ran it in the background. I'll tell you this, it worked really, really well as long as the two teams were competitive with each other. As soon as you had a big favourite and a big underdog, couldn't get it to work. I mean, the numbers were just off, and we've got to put our hands up and say sometimes there's a limited amount of knowledge. Now, if we've got a community of bettors here, I do ask this. If you happen to know the scoring probability distribution that's used in the big trading firms for NFL, and there's probably more than one, and rugby league, you're willing to share this information for us, we're willing to listen, because it's a difficult one. I mean, obviously in some of these sports, there are certain scores that cannot happen, and then certain scores are more common than others. 5s and 7s, of course, in NFL and rugby. Let me tell you this, we looked at cricket, ditched cricket first before anything, because that is a seriously difficult sport to try and model in terms of the points. It's much easier to do things that add up with 1s and 2s and things like that. If you've got any questions for this evening, fire them into the YouTube. I'm not looking at them because I'm talking, but my colleague Vivi is the marketing manager at Bookiebashing, and she is she's filtering them, if you like, getting rid of any of the trolls and giving me the questions that need to be answered so I can look at them clearly. I mean, one of the other things that we have had recently as well, everybody drink, that's the first one of the night, is sometimes people have been posting graphs that look like they're being positive, but they actually have ulterior motives. So they might say, they might not believe in a calculation, for example. And so then they post bets at the exchange saying, look how great these numbers are at the exchange. What they actually mean is, look how terrible the numbers are on the exchange. And perhaps I'm going to trade these numbers on the exchange because I think the bookie bashing models are terrible. One of the reasons as we move forward from where we are today is we're going to stop the ability of people with bad agendas or even suspect agendas to be able to get through to us. There's a lot of blocking going on just now, and that's just the nature of where we are in 2024. I was out last night having a drink. I ended up blocking 3 people whilst I was out, but that's just the way that it is today. So the ability to be able to troll and have an agenda is going to be much restricted moving forward. The first question that I have is I would love to know if Bookiebashing will ever look into casino offers. There's lots of EV to be had. And the answer to that question is no, but I completely agree with you. Well, I say I completely agree with you. I know historically how much EV there has been had in casino offers. I know I was told about them in 2006 and 2007 and didn't do anything about it. Back in the days when I think I heard you could sign up for a £4,000 bonus in an offshore casino and get a £4,000 like 100% match, and it was 5 times on blackjack, the wagering. And I was just like, I don't understand this, I'm not doing it. So as time's progressed, what happens with the casino landscape is lots of contenders come in, and it actually moves really, really quickly, a lot quicker than sports betting. Now, the edges in sports betting move pretty quickly, but nowhere near as quickly as what you have to do to look at in casinos. And quite frankly, I don't do anything in casinos. I have in the past, but I don't just now. I'm not in a team that does. I have been in the past, but I'm not just now. And I don't have anyone looking at them. And for those reasons, it's quite difficult for us to keep on board with what's going on a daily rate and everything like that. So I would simply advise to go and look elsewhere. I don't know what Odds Monkey are doing. I know they've progressed into that arena. There's another community I'm not going to name. I just wouldn't go there. And I've always thought Mike Cruikshank is a stand-up guy. And if he's still doing his stuff, go and see what Mike Cruikshank's doing. So lots of EV to be had. I'm sure if you can get through spinning fluffy favourites for 2.5 hours, then good for you. And it's a lot easier and more repeatable than a lot of sports offers. But no, it's not something that Bookiebashing is going to move into or has any plans to. Okay. Next question. What's your thoughts on... I'm just gonna come back to this. I'm gonna just ask for a little bit of clarity on it because I don't really understand what the question is. So 1 second. Can you ask for more clarity, please? Hello. Are the horse tracker winning percentages from the video yesterday better or worse with level stakes compared to win £200? So in all betting histories that I've looked at, there's always an order in terms of return on investment, right? So you got 3 staking strategies. That's very rough. You can have more because the third one can be separated into lots of different categories. But let's just keep it simple. You can unit win, unit loss, or Kelly. Unit win, you win the same amount for every bet. So it's owned at 100 to 1. It's £10 at 10 to 1. It's £1,000 at 1 to 10. Whatever you're doing, you're winning profit £100. That's your win unit. Your unit loss strategy is super easy. It's £1 on everything, or £10 on everything. Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if it's 1 to 10, 22 to 1, 100 to 1, or if it's a lottery ticket. It's £1 on everything, right? And then it's Kelly staking, which is a form of staking where you stake higher based on the perceived value of the bet. And in every bet history that you ever look at, you see that Kelly staking is the most profitable. In most bet histories that I've looked at, sorry for shaking the camera by the way, unit win is the next most profitable and unit loss is the next most profitable. There are some sizable bet histories that I've looked at where 2 and 3 have swapped around and unit loss is a little bit more profitable than unit win. Why would you ever do unit loss? It sounds dumb. Well, actually, I do it every day. I do £3 lucky 50, £3 each way lucky 15s, which is a £90 lucky 15. Or I might do a £2 lucky 31 or something like that. But it's always the same unit stake. There are 2 reasons for doing this. One is the simplicity of calculation, because if I'm going into shop or a runner's going into shop, the mental mathematics of coming up with a Kelly stake based on the EV of 4 horses at 4 different odds is time consuming. But also, if I'm betting £2.21 instead of £2.50, that's going to look a little bit sus, whether you're in shop or online. So much easier for account preservation and in terms of volume, just to go £2, £3 every time, or whatever it is that you're betting at. Now, yesterday, the question was actually, are the horse tracker winning percentages from the video yesterday better or worse with levels stakes compared to stake to win? I haven't looked, okay? I haven't looked. They would be better if they were Kelly. And because they're singles, they're actually easier to look at and, you know, bet Kelly. On the horse tracker, from the back of my head, I believe unit win outperforms unit loss on the horse racing tracker. It has been a while since I've done that analysis, though. And you could do that. There's a lot of data on the Bookiebashing site. You can go there. You can get all the data for the BB Algo from the 1st of January 2023 until now, which is nearly 2 years. It's like 50,000 horses. And you can just apply different stakes because the EV's on there, and you can work that out yourself. If you really need me to do that and report on it, or maybe one of my team, send a message into support, and perhaps we do that in the next couple of weeks, okay? Question, are new features likely not to be added to Ultimate? The answer to this is absolutely new features will be added to Ultimate. So let's say we come up with a way of getting an edge in Greyhound racing, okay? We're not going to have Ultimate and then this new tool at a new cost, okay? It will slot into one of the other ones, depending on if it's online shop or a coverage of those. But Ultimate will always be the biggest tier, and we will always make sure that everything's on top of that. And if a new tool comes around, it's really important to understand that we're always working on new tools, and here's a reason why, right? Never think what it is that you're profiting from today is going to be the same as what you're profiting on in 12 months. In fact, a lot of people that tire and grow old of the game that they're in do so because they assume that they were always using the same edge. 2015, William Hill and Ladbrokes both had different offers for £50, and one was if you bet on a horse and it came second at William Hill, you got a £50 free bet. If you bet a horse and it won at Ladbrokes, you got a £50 free bet. So you could take the same horse and bet it at £100 across Ladbrokes and William Hill, and if it comes first or second, you get a sizable increase. It was the equivalent of a whole decimal point in the odds on every horse. I mean, it was a lot of EV. And a lot of people made a lot of money. And then they realized how much they got stung and it went away. Those people never transitioned into any new edge. And they went away and they never came back because they didn't have the ability to learn, because they thought that that gravy train was going to last forever. So for a long time, you know, horses and lucky 15s, how long have we been running that track at Bookiebashing? 2017? Is it coming into its 8th year next year? They've been very valuable. At some point, other people catch up with how valuable they are. And the reason why we're doing okay, pal, is because for a long time we've been running concurrently a number of research and development projects, talking to other people that are gambling. And this is why this guy that made £30,000 from Paddy Power combo bets in the last year, quite quietly, has just been drilling away and doing his thing. So we have a number that are going on in the background just now. We've had a number that we've released in the last few weeks. They'll always fall under the Ultimate umbrella. So Ultimate will always be the highest tier. There'll never be another thing that happens. That is, you know, unless we go into casinos, but I don't see that happening. Next question. How do you imagine Mustard Bet leaving Betfair will affect your golf tracker? I had a look this weekend, and I thought that the strengths of the other exchanges were holding up. Over time, Betfair losing liquidity now for 12, 24 months and longer in a lot of key markets. And market makers are simply being attracted elsewhere. And it will make a difference, but I don't think the difference is sizable. As always, as markets become less liquid, availability of value actually grows. So let's say we run the horse racing tracker at 40% with an arbitrary number of 8.2 average confidence in the last few years. What liquidity leaving the exchanges means is that our confidence lowers. With that, the confidence of all of the traders and market makers lowers, and opportunities. The average EV increases. So we might have a more volatile profit loss graph, but on average we'll be making a little bit more. Some people might not like that. It might be difficult to, especially in something like golf, which is already into the patience of a saint, you know. But I honestly don't know. It's difficult, but it's not something that keeps me up at night. I'm not concerned. And it's interesting just now, like looking at it. I don't know if they haven't left, or if they have left, it doesn't look that different to me. I mean, you still got in play on the Shriners. Oh, actually, there's nothing. I shouldn't have said anything. In play is pretty bad. How about Andalusia? How did I looked at Guerrier, by the way. Was he 9 under after 11 holes? That's 54 watch. He's now 6 to 1. John Rahm's in the middle of the field and he's 11 to 1. Seems perfectly liquid for everyone in the top 15, which isn't that outrageous on a DP World Tour event after day one. Interesting to see the numbers. 468, 740 traded on the DP World Tour. $500,000 on the PGA Shriners. I don't know. Worth keeping an eye on, for sure. Let's have a conversation about that in 2 months, because we'll have some data. You know what I mean? Hi Tom, can the tools help me calculate fair odds for things like total 180s, shots on targets, and bookings? Yes, yes, and yes. Off the top of my head, for 180s, it's total 180s. We do most 180s in a session is quite a valuable. The EV in that can be really, really big. I like total 80s in a session as well, because you can get the multiple lines, and when there's an enormous number as there were the other week in the Grand Prix, all of them win. So yeah, we've got highest checkout now. I did different checkout lines, but that's a difficult one to work out. So we've got quite a lot of them. We've got in 180s and some combinations. When you start to combine them, they get a little bit less confident, but we still got them in there. In terms of player statistics, we've got shots on targets, assists, throw-ins. Is anyone using throw-ins? One of the things that we've been really working hard on is player bookings. The amount of work going on behind the scenes, you wouldn't believe. For 2 reasons. One, we do have a slight issue just now that we have a very profitable edge, but just now and again, some really strange numbers appear that are way outside of the market. So what we're trying to find a way of protecting ourselves against wacky lines. And just because they're wacky doesn't mean you shouldn't bet on them, but I'm pretty sure that we could optimize our returns over time just by dampening down the wackiness. Secondly, we wanted to expand the content. We wanted to lots more games. Work's ongoing on this, but it's hard. We have some challenges. Unfortunately, a stage now where I can't tell you exactly what we're doing because too many copycat services, and especially in something like this that is quite valuable, that people are making some decent money out of. So I would have thought that we would have had more player cards by now. We don't, but even today we had a long conversation about how we can move forward, how we can critically test the assumptions that we put in place before we put them in place, because we do nothing until we can actually have a look at what's going on and sort of show it with the data. In terms of results, player cards is one of the hardest as well. If you go to the data archive tool, you can see the results of what's been happening with players. But you've got to bear in mind, a player can be carded if he's not on the pitch. That actually really throws a curveball against automating a system. In fact, when we have been manually assigning results, that little thing where a player gets a yellow card when he's not on the pitch has thrown up a lot of oddities. And that as well, if you look at flash scores after a game, they could say that someone got a yellow card, and look at the same game tomorrow, they've changed him just because it gets redefined by Opta. The whole thing's very, very confusing. But yeah, we got player cards, we got player assists, throw-ins, shots on target. There's probably some more. I don't recall them all off the top of my head. I could actually bring them up. We brought in a load of NFL stuff. We've got passing yards. We've got passing touchdowns, rushing yards, sacks. We've got a number of different fair odds for all of these things. The logic behind why all of them is completely sound, but I can't go into now these days what that logic is. We are completely reportable. So every line that we have up we store in our archive tools, and when we have enough data, we compare expectancy against results. So for shots on target, for example, we expected 12,500 shots on target. We got like 12,499, and so we were super happy. So of course we've only got one season, and we're logging all of our kicking points, interceptions, passing touchdowns, rushing yards, passing and rushing yards, receptions, receiving yards, rushing and receiving yards, all of these different lines. So I'd love to be able to turn around to you and say this is how accurate they were, but we only just put them up this season, so we have to wait. I'm not going to be that guy that releases a tool and tells you it's 9,000 million ROI, because I'm going to have to wait probably 2 years before I can tell you how accurate it is. All I can say is that the logic does stand up, and we are going to be fully accountable. How we do player bookings, though, we need to sit down and think about. Next question, how do I track steamers within the BB platform? We are, one of the R&D projects that is close to release is a steamers tool. But you can do it, it's just slightly harder to do it en masse. The steamers tool is slightly related to an outliers tool, which we had up, we took down, we've revamped, and we've put back up. Actually, it's live, but it's not live to members yet. We've got a little bit more testing just to make sure we got everything right. In terms of steamers, just now, there's two different ways. One, shop coupon trackers. Pick your shop coupon, and you can open that up, and there are the steamers in that shop coupon. Now, if something's been cut and the odds have been updated, that steamer could be lost, so it is a bit of a roundabout way of doing it. If you want to do pure steaming, steam tracking, go to the bet builder, and you have to do it market by market, unfortunately, or even individual bet within each market. But identify the market that you want to have a look at. Let's say you wanted to have a look at Arsenal, both teams to score. No. Load that up in the bet builder, and instead of pushing it to your private tracker with a bookmaker and some back odds, push it to your private tracker using the Steam Drift track. And what that does is, let's say they're evens at the time you push it. Well, it will then hold the evens as the back odds, and if it steams in, it will be positive EV, and if it drifts, it will be negative EV. And you can track any number of bets. Now, you have to load the bets one by one, but you can track them any number of bets that way. If you want to do it by bulk, well, this tool that we're bringing out is going to help with that, but also we have a bet builder coupon tool. It's a little bit, takes a bit of working to get your head around how it works, but actually some pretty power users pretty much only use the bet builder coupon tool. And what that will do is select your markets, select your competitions, and it will track all the markets within that competition. For example, they might want to have a look at over 3.5 goals in all the Bulgarian and Estonian games in the top 3 divisions of both countries in the next 3 days. So it will automatically log that in, and then it will automatically track them. Now, if you can copy all of that data away with a click of a button. If you're copying that over time, and know that's a bit of a manual thing, then you would have an idea of what was steaming and what was drifting. Otherwise, that's the only way to do it at bulk. We've got a new tool coming for steamers. Hopefully that should make the bulk tracking of steamers possible. Slightly unrelated, next question. Are the odds of SSBT machines in Betfred the same as online? No. The SSBT machines in Betfred are managed by a Scandinavian company. For the most part, they are separate from Betfred, although Betfred plaster their logo on them and have a little bit of input in some particular bets that they have on there. It's difficult to get edges on Betfred's SSBTs. In the past, I've had runners, and what they do is they go and they take photographs of different screens that might be interested. I mean, they can't do everything. I've actually got to do the donkey work and go down and go, this looks interesting, this doesn't look interesting. One of the things that looked interesting in the past, for example, is that there was a market where you could choose how many games in a Premiership or a Championship Saturday was a home winner, an away winner, an over 2.5 or a BTTS. And like, the algorithm that they used was simply wrong, but you need like a sort of bet buildery calculator where you can work out more than 2 winners out of a series of 10 or something like that. And you could compound the value as well. The one weird thing about that, unlike the William Hill Great Sports Offers, is they were on a serious losing run. So they were value, but they lost. So I don't think anyone made any money, which is why they stayed on the machines for so long. Now that particular edge either no longer exists or it's no longer as big value, which is why I can talk about it now. But you have to kind of go onto the machine and like think, what could be value? Because it's not going to be match odds in the Champions League because the arbors will just snipe those off. It's got to be something a little bit more obscure, a little bit more complicated. And the best way to do it is take a photograph, have a buddy. Look, if you're 28 years old, what else are you doing on a Saturday at 2 p.m? Get out of the pub and get you and your mates organised, like I was back in the day, and have your runner go into the shop, send a photograph of the bets over, loads of different pages, and start crunching the numbers and checking them on your private tracker. Why do you think the private tracker exists in the first place? This is what we were doing all those years ago, albeit on Excel, and updating the odds meant that it was a complete palaver. So just get organised. That's how you would do it. William Hill, the odds are the same online as they are in shops, and so if you see a good opportunity in William Hill, standard markets, some of the boosts are they a tenner max, and I don't touch them, so I don't know. The your odds are all the same on their SSBT. All you've got to make sure of is that if they suspect what you're doing, because you put more than a single £10 note in the machine at the same time, that they don't just turn it off. In Kidderminster, there's a really horrible area manager, and I was like feeding 20s into the machine, and all I wanted was like 400 quid in there, but of course that's like bloody £20 notes making the most ridiculous and I'm about halfway through, and without even pressing a bet. By the way, I was betting on a horse at SP on this particular machine. Like, come on. Like, how could I be beating anything at that? But anyway, the manager shouted all across over the shop, "Oi, you're not arbing, are you?" I'm like, what am I meant to say to that? I literally went, "What's arbing?" And he looked at me like, "You know what arbing is." To which I kind of thought, what I'm doing is much worse for your bottom line than arbing, but of course you can't go down that route, can you? Hey Tom and Vivi, do you ever bet on greyhounds? No. There are various things where I put my hands up and say the edges are best left with the people that have inside connections or are real specialists and know what they're doing. So no. I love hearing stories of people that are successful in greyhounds. I'm very interested in it as a niche market. I think there are a small number of people making a lot of money on greyhounds, but no, I'm afraid I don't know of any particular edge other than any your each way edge, your steam. I don't know if there's enough liquidity in greyhound racing for steamers to be anything. It all comes in the last 2 minutes, doesn't it? Any advice on how to roll up selections from the earlier payout tracker? Any particular approach to multis? Yes, have a look at Bet. Now, look, I haven't had a Bet365 account since a long time. But what they do is they do a concession where you get X% on top of a 5-fold accumulator and more percent on a 6-fold and more percent on a 7-fold. They've done their maths. They know exactly what their edge is on a 5-fold and a 6-fold and a 7-fold. And so they're able to offer larger percentages. Win bonuses on top of them. So look at that and make your assessment. I mean, obviously, once you're getting into a straight 7-fold, if every team is evens, then you're looking at 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, 64, 128 to 1. So, I mean, they need to be a lot of odds on shots for something to win more than once every quarter year. But take a look at it. It does depend on the odds of your bets, because that's got a real effect on the variance and volatility, and it depends on the percentage payout that William Hill are offering as well. Wouldn't it be nice to have some sort of addition of that percentage payout as in the EV calculation, the early payout tracker? I don't want to sit here and make work for my IT team. I hope somebody makes a note of that and puts it in as a suggestion in a little user requests area at Bookiebashing, because I'm not allowed to post any of those because I'm not a user. Hi Tom, do you back singles on horses or just luckies? Both, but more multiples than singles. But I do singles when the time is right. I mean, sometimes runner might go to the shop, there's only 1 or 2 selections, so we'll just do it. Or actually, sometimes I don't really like horse racing, but if there is a particular race that I know I'm going to be watching or something like that, the odd single for fun. But that's just personal preference. I mean, I talked yesterday about the BB Algo and how if you applied a filter of 120% EV, now I'm making up the number, but it might have been 130% ROI or 30% ROI, if you want to report it like that. the idea of the video was that as you filtered a threshold of higher and higher EV, your ROI starts to go through the roof. So you might argue, well, all horses at over 100% are only 4.6%. I can get more than that in my bank account. Fine, but just filter higher. You fewer horses. Now, as you have fewer horses, you're going to have fewer opportunity to get on multiples, because all of those horses, of course, need to be at the same bookmaker. And at that point, singles make sense. So if there aren't enough horses to make the multiples, place a single, it's all good. And then, of course, you know, volatility of multiples sucks sometimes. It really does. It's quite nice just to have a single where you can be pretty confident what, you know, how often it should be placing and how often it should be winning. Andrew Lister, BB Algo for hounds in the future. I have never heard that suggestion before. I like it. I fear I don't have the data and I'll never get it, because I had to use 2 million horses to come up with the BB Algo horses. Can I get 2 million hounds or anywhere near that? I fear I can't. I'll ask the question to my team though. I'll see if they can go out and they can go out and find what data's out there, because I literally don't know what it is. And do you know what? It works. So that's one that we're going to file under R&D, research and development. I don't know the answer. I have got a team. I'm going to put them to work and I'm going to find out if the answer is yes or no. And if no, we'll let you know. And if it's yes, we'll hold it in R&D until we can prove something. Liam Kavanagh, what's your biggest recent win? Did anyone win big? Lucky 15 in Bookiebashing. I've never had a big 15. I think, like, comparatively to other people, this has been weird as a professional gambler. I don't think I stake particularly highly compared to some. I bet £2, £3 each way lucky 15s. People bet a lot higher than that. I bet some, you know, lower EV bets on the exchange to win £500, right? I mean, that's quite a low amount for some professional bettors. I made 5,000 on the exchange last month betting. The guy that made 100,000, I was looking at my bet history and I just multiplied everything by 20 to figure out what it would have taken to have won £100,000. Some of those downswings would have made me physically vomit, and I don't have the temerity for it. I bet less than I used to because I've got a mortgage and kids. It's a natural progression of things. In the past, I have, the one wasn't how much I stake. It was my biggest win. I think I picked up £14,000 from a Betfred, and I'll tell you this, that Betfred's not that far away from me. I've been in there very few times picking up that £14,000 because that kind of thing stands up. That was in football, and there was a 9,000 golf where the money counted in the kitchen. But horse racing, I think it was 6.5 off the top of my head. 6,500 could be the biggest. However, I'll need to check that. Confirm it. I don't have my history in front of me, so I'll go back. There might have been a 10 grand one years ago and I've forgotten about it. But I remember that I think 6.5 grand one, that went to the last race. And if the horse won the last race, it was pretty high odds. But if he won the last race, it was $250,000 or slightly confusing bonuses that were going to start coming in and best odds guarantee. But it's like we're trying to guess how much we're going to win, and we couldn't nail it down to within £100,000, which is always that horse came second. So I mean, okay, technically came second by like 15 lengths, so it wasn't pipped to the post. But I mean, yeah, a big win can sometimes not sort of muddy the waters, though. I'm way more happy for like regular small wins, because anyone can win big and then lose it. It's keeping that edge running over time. So relative to the income I get from bookiebashing, I make more from professional gambling, and I trust that will always be the case. But nothing's ever enormous. Do you want to know what the lowest ROI is on one of my syndicate groups? It's Euro Millions. Because a couple of those guys are only in the group to bet on anything. And I try and we are in profit, and I don't want to be a hero, and I think one of them is listening just now, but I do try and steer them in the direction of some positive EV bets. They they could care less if a bet's positive EV or negative EV. They're straight in there with a ticket. I think we're negative 100% return on investment. There might have been one ticket that returned £1.20 or something like that. So, yeah. I mean, if they keep going down that route, perhaps my biggest win is going to be 150 million in the next lottery. We'll see. Hi, Tom. Next question. I was happy to connect with you in relation to the topic future of in-play markets and can the human brain beat AI? Yeah, right. Okay. Yeah, that's a very interesting one. There's like in terms of in-play markets, really frustrating thing for me at Bookiebashing is that I firmly believe that the largest edges out there are in in-play markets, in conjunction with the fact that account restrictions are so much slower in play. Like, you can get away with murder. The problem is my IT infrastructure can't handle the markets. It's not fast enough. I mean, when you look at odds, sometimes there might be 60 seconds or 90 seconds since an update. Quite frankly, you're a dinosaur working to those time periods in play. But there's a lot of available value across. I see it in golf, plenty to be had in golf. I mean, Rasmus Højgaard, have a look at his graph today. He came down so far and then bounced back up. And then have a look at what he shot. And it's like basically what happened, that people got overexcited and laid him way too lowly, or back too lowly, and then laid him way too high. And any graph that goes mad like that, with a lot traded over a short period of time, is indicative of people that are uncertain how to price something up. And with that brings a lot of opportunity. In terms of artificial intelligence, do I have my thesis here? I don't know where my thesis is. It's probably not even in this room. My thesis is a 1,000-word PhD thesis. It's in that room. I'm not going to get it. It's boring as hell. It's called, it was from a while back as well, so it's maybe not relevant. Multi-criteria analysis in decision-making, multi-criteria analysis and artificial intelligence in the optimization of decision-making in high-maintenance infrastructure. Feel free to check it out of Birmingham University Library anytime you want to have a read through that bad boy. But what I understand from artificial intelligence back then and what I understand from it now is that it doesn't have the nuances required to particularly identify edges and the art form required to understand what edge and how sustainable it will be. Not that every edge has to be sustainable. The hole-in-one guy didn't have a sustainable edge. They knew that they had to go in and smash that, and it was probably one time only. But great for them. That the fact that there were those holes and made them famous, but they very easily could not have had the holes in one there and had really good bets and made nothing out of them. Artificial intelligence, lots of people think artificial intelligence is going to simply be able to achieve everything, and I just don't believe that that's the case. It's going to be good at driving, getting us to the moon, doing my shopping from Morrison's. It's going to be good at tasks that have a Boolean yes, no, correct way of doing it, or worse and better. That doesn't apply to edge identification. It doesn't apply to how you find them and look for them, so I'm not concerned about it. Not short term anyway, not in my lifetime. Whether my daughter, who for parents' evening tonight, firmly mentioned that she wanted to take over Bookiebashing in the future. She's 8 years old, but you know, you might be reporting to her in the future. Rigorous hard work with all the offers, with all you offer at Bookiebashing, but feel overwhelmed with so much data to delve into. A lot of people have said this. What would you recommend is for beginners of your site and set them in their way? Okay, right. So for beginners, the traditional way of a sort of assessing value or receiving value would be tipsters, or if you like, someone gives you the bets, trackers. Now, even that can be confusing at Bookiebashing. You look at a golf tracker, you might have 40 players that are plus EV, and you might look at that and go, I'm not betting on 40 players. One, I don't have all these bookmakers, but 40 players? And I get you. We're not saying to bet on every single one of them. And again, with the horses, is there like 70 horses a day across 6 bookmakers that are plus EV at 12 o'clock? And you know, I'm not going to bet on all 70 horses. We know you're not going to bet on all 70 horses. What we are saying is that anything over 100% is value. So go into those trackers and just start lifting some of that value and try and be patient enough to place enough of them for the variance to ride out. Typically, that might be 1,000 bets, depending on the EV and the odds. A lot of people don't get to 1,000 bets when they're on a losing run. So that's the easiest way of doing it. If you have horses, lucky 15s kind of help you churn through the numbers a little bit faster with fun returns when they do sync up into a place. And also maybe jump in with something that might have a sort of more finite shelf life, which is if you want to have a play around on exchanges, sometimes it can be a little bit worrisome or scary to play around in standard markets because you think that the other person simply knows more than you do. I promise you that's very often not the case in less liquid markets. Certainly is the case in Champions League match odds, so stay away from Champions League match odds. I do, right? Know what your limits are, but in other derivative markets, there are edges to be made. And if you want to start out in enhanced specials because you know where the value is coming from. You know where the bias is coming from. It's coming from a lot of match bettors that are holding a price at something that isn't equating to fair because their entire purpose for living in that market is to hedge their bets and trade off against the bookmaker. So we can understand why they're biased. And they're a good sort of way of stepping stoning into the enhanced specials, into the exchanges before you maybe look at other markets. I do actually want to have a conversation with some of the more high rollers. And if that comes to you, if you've got a fairly decent understanding about market making and a reasonable bankroll, or you're in a syndicate that has a reasonable bankroll, I was talking to some of the exchanges, was it yesterday or the day before, about the future and how more money can be driven into new markets on some of these exchanges. What they're crying out for is syndicated market makers. If that is of interest to you, there's a lot of money to be made there. There's a lot of money, people laying first goal scorer, making a really, really decent return on investment. But not just that market. There's plenty of other markets. On the exchanges, they're not very liquid just now. They could be. The exchanges have the power to drive people in that direction. And anyone that's there market making could be taking some serious EV. And that's going to be one of those edges where in 10 years, you might look back and think, God, those people made some money. I wish I'd jumped into that. And that edge might be gone in 10 years because there's too many people in there. I think the people that do get involved with that in the near future could see themselves doing very well. So if that interests you, if you understand market making and you know, or you have or know and have access to people with a significant bankroll, get in touch with me. I might start seeing if I can start connecting the jigsaw pieces that would be required here that would really benefit everybody in the advantage play scene. Question 15. I'm just going to say this for Evener. I've been talking now for an hour and I can see another 5 or 6 questions. And I think I'm just going to end it on question 20, just because an hour is long enough for me to be talking for. Is it better to bet on player cards after team news? I don't know. I always, no, I don't always do. The markets I don't think move. One of the R&D projects, again, I hate to talk about stuff that's available yet, that we're doing, is the logic would suggest that if the game is expected to have a finite number of cards, in cards, if it's expected to have 5 cards, it's not, it sounds stupid to say this, but it's not going to have 10 cards. And so if all of the individual players' odds add up being 10 cards, then there's value somewhere to back or to lay, okay? So I think there's definitely an edge to be had looking at the sum of the odds of the individual players after team news in the confirmed starting lineups and then comparing that against the match expected, with one significant caveat. Way more cards come at the end of the game than at the beginning of the game, certainly relative to corners and goals. So substitutes are going to get a lot more cards then substitutes are going to get goals and corners. And that's quite an important bit of analysis that we haven't been able to find a significant amount of data for. We had it, and we continue to look at it, and it's why it's still in R&D. But it's hard. It's hard for us, but guess what? It's hard for everyone. And with hardness brings opportunity. So your question is it better to bet on player cards after team news? My answer is going to be, depends on how sophisticated the level of analysis that you're using. If you are bringing in team news and looking at the expected substitutes, which is really hard, I know. Like expected substitutes, nobody's this way. Some inside information might come in handy. And then comparing those against the expectancy in the game, then I would say, oh, for sure. But that's quite a complicated level of analysis to be, right? And there's absolutely nothing wrong with taking a Virgil van Dijk at 2 p.m. in the afternoon if he's kicking it off at 8 o'clock in the evening. Nothing wrong with it. How do you calculate the most 180s in a session or the most goals in a UCL round? Now, when you say how, do you mean how do you use the tools to do it at Bookiebashing, or what is the mathematics? What was the second bit? Or most goals in UCL round or PLGW? What's PLGW? I don't know what PLGW stands for, so I can't answer that bit. Could be Premier League, but I don't know what GW stands for. But most depends on, you can have various different probability distributions, and there is arguments about the effectiveness of all of them. A standard one that commonly quite a lot of people get introduced up when they're looking at sports modelling is the Poisson distribution. With the Poisson distribution, a Skellum distribution uses the Poisson distribution to calculate exactly 0, exactly 1, exactly 2, exactly 3, exactly 4, Team A, and exactly 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4 for Team B. So because it knows that, it can do what's 0 and 0, what's 1 and 1, what's 2 and 2, what's 3 and 3, what's 4 and 4. Add up all of those probabilities, you get the tie. Similarly, you now know what to add up to get Team A to have the most, or Team B to have the most, or 180s as well. So that's a Skellum distribution. Have a Google of that and some probability. And that should tell you. Now, at Bookiebashing, we have a versus tool. And you can load in goals, teams, players. And I believe now, although I haven't used it for this yet, but we can now bring in 180s, passing yards. So if you wanted Michael Van Gogh to have the most goals out of Michael Van Gogh to have the most out of him having 180s, Haaland to have assists, Crystal Palace to have goals, or Travis Kelce to have passing yards, you can work that out. Now, of course, Travis Kelce isn't a quarterback. Here we go, right? He's not going to have the most passing yards. And I was just throwing that out for any of the NFL fans to catch me. If for whatever reason you wanted to work that out, it uses a Skellum distribution. The Versus tool can be used for that. It loads it. You can save them. You can come back to them later. The lines do change. Hotspots coupon and Betfred, it's quite valuable. You get some big odds winners on that coupon. So if you've got the time, we don't put it up week after week on a public tracker because something like Nottingham Forest have the most goals at 66-1 in the shops doesn't simply hold the liquidity. But it's pretty quick and easy to put it up on your own private tracker or your team's private tracker. And something I wasn't aware of actually is that they continue it in play if there's a game on a Friday night. So you can actually assign what the Friday night goals were and then still play on the Saturday and see if there's any value. I would imagine there's more value then than there is before the start of the coupon. Right, next question. On steamers, in the past it was mentioned, but it was mentioned that there is no evidence that steamers are profitable and drifters are not. Has this changed? I don't necessarily believe that. If I mentioned that, it might be taken out of context. I think Joseph Buchdahl did quite an interesting analysis, and I might be butchering this. And I'm really sorry if I am, because it's been a long time since I looked at it. I think he looked at a lot of horses, and his analysis showed that there was no tangible benefit of betting on steamers. And from what I understood, that was his conclusion, and it was a good piece of work. And I remember I disagreed with it for certain reasons, and I promise you I don't remember why. And that in no way discredits Joseph. I think he's an excellent analyst. He's got a very good analytical brain. And my reasons for not agreeing with him could have been wrong. So just because I disagree with somebody's work is in no way a criticism of their work. But I think I remember looking at it and there were certain things that hadn't been considered. It was so long ago just now, I'm afraid I can't give too many specifics. My personal experience on steamers is that, one, I've got a lot of data to show how profitable I have been on the coupons tracker over time. And certainly you can go an entire season without making money on them, right? So that's the periods of time that we're about with steamers and availability of bets on the coupon tracker. But the one bit that always persuades me that steamers are profitable is the likelihood that a steamer will beat closing line value. And quite frankly, on average, more steamers will continue to steam than to, at exactly the point that you look at it, drift back up again. It's not 50-50, okay? It's going to be more likely that a steamer continues to steam. You can now go and talk to any penny stock salesman or any of these people that trade currencies, because you know they look at their graphs and they're absolutely convinced that they can notice patterns. But the one thing I will always stand by is that with the general relationship of something shortening in price, you're not going to look at it at exactly the moment it's going to bounce back up. You're always looking at it, and if the trend is showing a downward momentum, then that downward momentum more often than not will continue. Meaning that, on average, over a very large data set, more often than not, you're beating the closing. Absolutely not beating it every single time. It may even be as thin as 48% of the time you're not beating it, and 52% of the time you are beating it. But on margins such as that is enough to be profitable in betting. So my position firmly is that betting on steamers is a profitable proposition in the correct circumstances. It has to be a sustainable way of doing it, which there may be a recent tool that's the least sustainable way of doing it I've ever seen. The analysis of steaming and drifting has to be considerate and it has to be accurate, and there are different ways of doing that. I mean, when do you start looking? How much liquidity do you bring in? Let's not give all the away for anyone that might not be doing it correctly. So just be wary that when you're looking at steamers, it's not just every £2 trade or every single second that you're looking at, but you need to be slightly sort of selective about your data quality when you're looking through steamers, okay? Question 18, I'm going to do a few more questions, okay? So 18, 19 and 20. I'd love to see first goal scorer and any goal scorer on the tracker. I understand you have the tools to find these bets, but any chance of them being the bet tracker? Don't think so, but I hate to always say no without thinking something through. Here's the reasoning why. So we're talking about scorer for one of two things. I'm going to dismiss something like Betfred's double delight hat trick, which does go on the bet tracker. We can be betting on exchange, or we can be betting at bookmaker. And certainly, if you've got access to Bet365, when you look at trading teams around the world, Bet365 have their own trading team, and they price up goal scorer. And I've talked to other senior trading firms, and as it transpires, the opinion is that they price up goal scorer quite badly, and that means that there's often quite a lot of value in anytime goal scorer and first goal scorer at Bet365 and other markets, that they can get away with being less accurate. That's the consensus of people that I've spoken to. Okay, so I think there's plenty of value out there to be had in anytime goal scorer, first goal scorer, +3+ score in first half, things like that. There's plenty of value before team news, but you have to be so confident in your understanding of risk of players not starting or other players starting or not starting. Team news, I think the values are just so unbelievably clear. And if you're a bookmaker, knock your socks off. However, it can be quite big, certainly at Bet365. And I wouldn't want to be tipping them off all of the time that there's purple bets available there on first goal scorer. And on the exchange, absolutely not, no. We cannot be putting exchange bets regularly up on the bet tracker, because it will get screenshotted and shared from wide, and it won't withstand any kind of liquidity. For those reasons, we're quite protective of how we share the information for anytime goal scorer and first goal scorer. And what we absolutely advise is to be aware of the matches that you're looking at and get hold of the player XG tool at exactly correct time. We'll push a lot of these data players into your private trackers. There's very often on weeks and we'll push in Haaland, and we'll push in Foden, we'll push in a lot of guys that we know that we're going to be looking at week in, week out. Actually, we even look at the top XG across all of Europe, and because we were doing that, we put this up on Twitter for a bit of fun every Friday morning, and all of those guys, the higher expectancies, I want to track, and I'll generally track them Steam Drift track against the exchange because that's where I bet. But if I had access to an odds checker, top price, I might just be entering them into my private tracker with the top price back odds and the second price. Now, that's a bit of donkey work on your side. That's the only way this can work when it's such a big edge. Sustainable betting is all about understanding how wide this information can be spread. And we could put it on the trackers at some of these bookmakers. I really very much worry that it's not a sustainable enough market to withhold. It's less sustainable, for example, than horse racing and golf and early payout match odds and things like that. Incidentally, before I get on to 19 and 20, actually 19 looks quite easy. I saw a video recently that you mentioned betting on boxing, Joshua versus Dubois. How did you calculate the value, or was this just your opinion of what would happen? I don't remember what it was that I bet on. But I don't know a lot about boxing. I'm certainly not a fan of the sport, although I like listening to the radio, but I don't like watching it on the TV, and I don't understand any of the nuances of it. One particular, that one was an enhanced special, so really easy to work out because I was just comparing the price I was getting on the exchange against the market price. And actually, I think I tried to work out when the Bet365 boost had gone live, and I was trying to work out what it was trading at before then. It was something like, was it Joshua to win by knockout or decision or something like that. So that was really easy because it was just a biased enhanced special. But one of the things that you do is it's trusting what information is more reliable when two different markets throw up different figures. And what you get in boxing sometimes is you get grouped round betting. And for example, it's really simple. You could have Joshua to win in round 1 at 3-1, round 2 at 3-1, round 3 at 3-1. And then the group round betting, 1, 2, and 3, should be 25% plus 25% plus 25% equals 75%. Sometimes it's not 75%. Sometimes it's 70%. Sometimes it's 90%. So now your question is, what's the more reliable market? Because one of these is wrong. Maybe both of them are wrong. So now look at history, deviations against the market prices, and most importantly, liquidity. And sometimes it can be very, very clear which one of these two is wrong, and go in and back or lay whatever it is that is necessary. Or never be too scared to lay. The enhanced special recently, which I think in the future on the exchange may very well be under a standard market of King of the Hockey. For Luke Humphries versus Mike Deda, they had Luke Humphries to win, Luke Humphries to have the most 180s, and Luke Humphries to have the highest checkout, which is King of the Hockey. Now, I think if you took Luke Humphries to win and Luke Humphries to have the most 180s and just multiply those two together, there is maybe some correlation over a long factor, over a long format. But I think that was like 3.4. And on the exchange, it was 3.4. But the exchange also had highest checkout, which with two evenly matched players with the same expectancies would be 50-50. But Luke Humphries was a strong favourite in this match. Mike won it, by the way. But whatever it was, I didn't know what the number was, but I knew it was way higher than 3.4. Oh, possibly over. So it was the strongest lay possible, this enhanced special. It was probably up at the bookmaker at 3.5, so the match bettors were holding up at 3.4. And then it was the easiest win ever. I mean, I think Mike Deda got all the King of the Hockey. I think he won. He got the most 180s and that checkout. Maybe he only got 2 out of the 3. But I don't know. After timing. Don't be scared to lay. Second drink for everyone. Last bet for me, last question, sorry. I had a question about volume. Obviously, with a lot of strategies on bookie bashing being high variance, what would be a realistic target of EV volume each week if you had 10 to 20 hours spare? Well, I never worry about it. Actually, I very frequently have busy periods and quiet periods. There's kind of a thing sometimes where you're like, I think everyone has it. You go through a hot period and you place more bets. That's just natural. You go through a losing period, you place fewer bets, which is why it's important to be in a team, because being in a team dampened those negative feelings of a reduction in drive. I mean, there's so many different things to be betting on, but I would say in terms of number of bets per week to make the $8,000 or so I made last month, I'm going to try and put a finger on it. Run against the shop. He might average 2 lucky 15s a day, and some days it's 0 and some days it's 4. So maybe 100 lucky 15s a month. Golf will be 16 players a week times 64 bets, which takes me 5 minutes every week. So, I mean, in terms of time, that's 20 minutes. Football coupons, And how much time am I spending placing bets and sending them out 1-2 hours a day? How many bets am I getting on? Honestly, I don't know. I'm just trying to think of I don't log a lot of bets very accurately anymore, unless I'm in a group where it has to be logged to divvy up the profits. For my own, actually, for a long time ago, I made the decision that I wanted less administration because I was just confident. I could see my balances going up. If I ever needed to do anything analytical, I can just withdraw a bet history, and I rarely do that anymore. So I don't know how many, but volume per week. Let's put a figure on it. Volume per week. How many per day? 30 bets a day, 200 bets a week, 1,000 bets a month. I've plucked that out of nowhere, and there'll be weeks, half terms coming up soon, that I may very, very easily place nothing in that week. My runner might go on holiday. He's getting married soon, worst thing that could possibly happen to any runner ever. There might be some weeks where, there might be some months where that's 2,000. There might be some months where that's 500. There might be some months during the summer holidays where that's 0. In terms of time, we're talking like 1 to 2 hours a day, and then the rest of it is just administrative stuff. I've had 3 requests for 3 very quick questions, so I'm going to speed up how long I'm spending on every question now. Could you model which team to hit the most sixes in cricket in a similar way to most 180s in darts? Yes. Number of sixes would be a Poisson distribution with an expectancy, which you could work out with your own data analysis if you've got a history, or you could steal it from the markets or the spreads or something like that. So yes, that could be done. Any thoughts on the US election? None. Stay away from politics, religion, and threesomes. And question with a quick answer. How long did it take you to develop the BB algo for horses? How long? It's like, you see this in the background? Isn't it nice? It's really, really cool, isn't it? This background here, the wood effect. I've got a mate, Jim, that did that. Jim's actually an artist, but he doesn't make a lot of money from being an artist, so he does a lot of this work. He did that in like a day and a half. But do you know how long it took him to get the skill set to be able to do that so accurately, where everything is within a millimeter space from each other? It's probably like 20 years. So for the BB algo, which is an enormously long series of code and algorithms, somebody has asked, could you just tell me what the equation is? Well, it's pages and pages and pages and pages long. It took genuinely a month's worth of solid work at 40 hours a week, like a normal office job, a whole month from beginning to end. Then it needed another month of a really specialist IT developer, Lee, who is one of the co-owners of Bookiebashing. But between me and Lee, we needed to know how to do the regression analysis and the mathematics for the BB algo. And that took me my PhD. And I don't know how many years Lee spends developing his code to make it crunch the numbers accurately. So I'm going to say 2 man months in terms of analytical time and coding, and 20 years in terms of field experience to know how to get from point A to point B. There you go. Question with a quick answer. 2 months and 20 years. Thank you everybody for joining the Ask Me Anything tonight. Thank you very much to Evener. I was actually a little bit nervous that it was just going to be a full troll fest, that nobody was going to turn up except for people that are asking questions that are loaded or had an agenda or were just insulting or abusive. And I didn't see any of that. And it makes me happy enough that I'm going to go downstairs, have my tea that's waiting for me, and open up a bottle of wine. Cheers. Thank you very much, everyone.